Hi, I'm Dongxiang. Welcome to Digging into China, where we take a deep dive into what's really happening in China and share some unique insights. The vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, Zhang Youxia, is in trouble. This guy is literally the number 2 figure in the military, right behind Xi Jinping. When I first heard that Zhang Youxia had fallen, my immediate thought went straight back to those final chaotic years before the Ming dynasty collapsed. There is already a ton of news and commentary out there about Zhang Youxia being purged. Today, I want to approach it from a different angle: the current state of the PLA's combat power, and the fact that Xi Jinping's rule has now entered what you might call garbage time. First, a quick rundown on Zhang Youxia's background. His father, Zhang Zongxun, was one of the founding upper generals of the Communist Party, and he served in the same Northwest theater as Xi Jinping's father, Xi Zhongxun. Zhang Youxia himself fought in the 1979 self-defense counterattack against Vietnam and the 1984 Laoshan campaign. Whatever you think about how poorly those fights went, the point is he actually saw real combat. In today's PLA, that makes him extremely rare. A general who has seen blood and even commanded the regiment level or higher operations in actual war. Among the current small circle running the Central Military Commission, he's basically the only one left with that credential. So here is a man with red second-generation bloodline, deep family ties between the two houses, plus genuine battlefield prestige, 3 layers of top-tier protection, and even he gets wiped out by this political machine. What does that tell us? It tells us the political system has completely changed. We can call the current setup a transition matrix. If you want a term to wrap your head around it, just one more state of this decaying communist system. What does this matrix look like right now? The buffer layer that used to exist has been physically eliminated through endless purges. Today, let's do a kind of quantitative back test. Take the purge data from the past 3 years, slice in a piece of Ming Dynasty history from 387 years ago, and overlay it with Markov chain logic. When you do that, you see something almost comical. It's like a person so afraid of choking that he stops eating, so afraid of falling that he stops walking, so afraid of anything going wrong that he ties himself to the bed. Sure, he's absolutely safe now, but he's also basically crippled, as good as dead. The whole body turns into a stagnant pool just waiting to rot. That's exactly the death spiral Emperor Chongzhen was trapped in at the end of the Ming Dynasty. If we treat today's CCP politics as a giant data game, then the high-level military shakeups from 2023 to 2026 amount to total team wipeout level. Let's turn all the information into data and look at the distribution pattern. When you stack up the resumes, positions, and the timing of these fallen generals, a very dangerous statistical pattern jumps out. This is a step-by-step escalating purge. First, the technocrats, then the ones with real combat experience, then the political loyalists, layer by layer. The first big collapse was the single most critical card in the deck, the rocket force. Right after that, the entire equipment procurement system collapsed too. They demanded a 6-year retrospective audit on purchases, precisely covering the period former Defense Secretary Li Shangfu was in charge. That retroactive purge directly brought down huge swaths of the military-industrial complex. Then came Ma Xingrui from the aerospace side. Next, the purge climbed to political work bureaucrats like Miao Hua and He Weidong, and now it's reached Zhang Youxia. Do we even need to debate whether these people were actually corrupt? Come on. There isn't a single CCP official who isn't on the take. Now that Zhang Youxia is down, who's next? Xi Jinping himself? If the escalation pattern holds, let's trace the path of the last few years. You can see it crystal clear. It started with the rocket force that handles nuclear weapons, spread to military enterprises that build the weapons, then seeped into the political work departments that manages the caterers, and finally swung the axe straight at the real command system that actually fights wars. If you understand the technology, you can get taken down for corruption. If you understand the politics, you can get taken down for picking the wrong side. If you understand how to fight, you can get taken down because you hold real power. So, who's left standing? Just the ones who know how to clap, how to make the right statements, how to write self-criticisms, the political zombies. Why did everyone pay so much attention before to whether Zhang Youxia had really been grabbed? Because he wasn't just one person. He was a structural buffer layer. If even he falls, it means the system has chopped off its own limbs to protect the brain. And yes, that's exactly what's happened. In any authoritarian system, you need a buffer layer between the dictator and the massive bureaucratic machine. That buffer has two critical jobs. First, it's the urinal. It handles all the dirty, resentment-creating work. Think of the massive army reforms a few years back that touched so many people's cheese. Only someone like Zhang Youxia could carry that out. Xi himself couldn't do it. Second, it's the fall guy. When big failures happen, these people get thrown under the bus to preserve the dictator's image of being all-knowing, all-correct, forever infallible. For the past 10 years, the link between Xi and the military ran through Zhang Youxia. Now he's turning the knife on Zhang Youxia. What does that mean? The buffer is completely shattered. This is a very dangerous political signal. It shows Xi no longer trusts anyone who offers any kind of opinion. In this respect, Xi is being extraordinarily foolish. Any cult-like organization needs two things to stand firm. First, an infallible supreme being who can never be wrong. Second, the underlines below have to be shown favor because they are the ones spreading the gospel. The supreme being in a cult usually doesn't declare himself the god outright. He positions himself as the agent of the god. An agent is human, and humans can make mistakes. But Xi insists he is absolutely correct, while also personally directing and personally deploying everything and personally letting things fall apart. He's drawing all the fire straight onto himself. At the same time, he treats his subordinates with extreme stinginess and zero grace. This kind of dictatorship seems determined to self-destruct. The result? The paradox of control. On the surface, power is more concentrated than ever. Every intermediate link has been smashed. No one dares block an imperial decree. But in reality, without the buffers, filtering, and feedback, the dictator is now fully exposed to a flood of trivial, fake, and even malicious information. In plain terms, he's getting played with zero resistance. Right now, both the political and the military state of the CCP is exactly this kind of a bizarre operation after all buffers have been surgically removed. And this isn't the first time. There was one especially brutal, bloody dress rehearsal, the final tragedy of the Ming dynasty, the death of Lu Xiangsheng. Let me tell you about a piece of Chinese history from 387 years ago. You may never have heard it, but the story has a startling relevance today. January 1639, that date has an eerie coincidence with the January we are in now in 2026. Let me tell you about the death of Lu Xiangsheng. Although Zhang Youxia and Lu Xiangsheng aren't really comparable, I want you to feel how similar the atmosphere and the dynamics are. Who was Lu Xiangsheng? He was the last truly capable Confucian general of the late Ming, the final military firewall of the dynasty. The Ming had an elite battle-hardened unit called the Tianxiong Army. Lu Xiangsheng built that force. It was one of the very few Ming units willing to stand and slug it out with the Manchu cavalry. The emperor at the time, Chongzhen, was stubborn, stingy, paranoid, reckless, and desperate for quick wins. Sound familiar? Just like Xi today. Chongzhen had the same deadly knot. He desperately needed capable ministers like Lu Xiangsheng to win battles and stop the Manchu Iron Riders. Yet, he was terrified of any general gaining too much independent power. He couldn't tolerate the slightest political incorrectness, especially on the debate between fighting versus negotiating. When Dorgun led Manchu forces into the border and the capital was shaken, Chongzhen urgently recalled Lu Xiangsheng, who was in mourning for his father, back to Beijing and appointed him supreme commander of all forces under heaven. Sounds incredibly prestigious, right? But it was actually a death trap. The Ming court had a clear, deadly triangle. One side was the war faction led by Lu Xiangsheng. His stance was rock solid. He told the court, "Your humble servant knows only how to die in battle. I know nothing of negotiation." What he wanted was grain, troops, authority, and permission to decide the battle. Face to face with Chongzhen the emperor, he said the words that made the emperor's face change. "If your majesty wishes to negotiate peace, then do not speak of war. If you wish to fight, then do not speak of peace." Lu Xiangsheng took the job in a near-hopeless situation. Weren't there plenty of presidents? Governor of Jiliao Liu Ce executed. Governor of the Three Borders Zheng Zhongjian executed. Yuan Chonghuan executed. Fan Zhiwan executed. Supreme Commander Zhao Guangbian executed. On the other side was the peace faction led by Yang Sichang, the Minister of War and Chongzhen's favorite. Yang had no other talent except reading the emperor's mind. He knew Chongzhen secretly wanted peace to ease financial pressure but didn't want the stigma of being called a traitor. So Yang's job was to crush the war faction, cut off Lu Xiangsheng's supplies, even force him into a corner, clear the path for peace talks, and pin any defeat on Lu. The third force was the eunuch supervisors, led by Gao Qiqian. These guys correspond to today's political commissars and discipline inspection teams. They knew nothing about warfare but held ultimate political authority. Gao Qiqian controlled tens of thousands of the best Guanning iron cavalry. Yet his sole mission was to watch Lu Xiangsheng and stop him from doing anything rash. So the most absurd scene unfolded. January 1639, in Jilu, Hebei province, Lu Xiangsheng and his last 5,000 Tianxiong troops were completely surrounded by Manchu forces, 30,000, maybe 50,000, all elite. The 5,000 had been without food for 7 days. History records they ate snow to survive. And it was brutally cold, cold enough that some bowstrings froze and snapped, making archery impossible. Was Lu Xiangsheng desperate? Of course he was. But what was even more despairing is this. Just 25 kilometers away, less than 16 miles, 30 to 40,000 Ming's main force cavalry were camped, and they were under the eunuch Gao Qiqian's command. Lu sent messengers begging for rescue. The messenger pleaded, "If His Excellency Gao would just move, we can still be saved." Gao didn't move. Did Emperor Chongzhen know? Of course he knew, but he never issued a hard order for Gao to go help. Deep down, Chongzhen feared an uncontrollable Lu Xiangsheng more than he feared losing the battle. What if Lu Xiangsheng won and became too powerful? What if Lu Xiangsheng ruined the peace talks? In the end, at the Battle of Jilu in Hebei, Lu ran out of ammunition and food. Reading the Ming history biography of Lu Xiangsheng always breaks your heart. It says, cannonballs gone, arrows gone. Lu took 4 arrows and 3 sword cuts. In hand-to-hand fighting, he killed more than a dozen enemies before collapsing from exhaustion. His aide, Yang Lu-hai, threw himself over the body to prevent the Manchurians from trampling it, and took 24 arrows in the back, shielding his commander. But the real Chinese-style horror comes after. After Lu Xiangsheng died, the eunuch Gao Qi-qian panicked and wet himself. He didn't dare report the truth. The peace faction leader Yang Sichang told Chongzhen that Lu probably wasn't dead. He had likely fled the battlefield or even defected. And Chongzhen, with his frightening lack of judgment, actually believed it. Yang and Chongzhen were both in Beijing, yet Yang claimed Lu Xiangsheng had run away and the emperor bought it. With that level of intelligence, who else but him was going to lose the country? Lu's body wasn't even cold, yet instead of mourning him, Chongzhen sent the imperial guard to the battlefield to verify the corpse. That verification took 80 days, meaning Lu's body lay exposed in open wilderness for 80 days until it was unrecognizable. How did they finally identify it? By the sole of his foot. His servant recognized the sole of his foot. Then what did Yang Sichang do? He arrested one of Lu's soldiers, Yu Zhenlong, tortured him for 3 days and nights, forcing him to confess that Lu Xiangsheng had fled. Yu was beaten horribly. Right up until he died, he kept shouting, "The supreme commander died for the country. You cannot frame a loyal man." Even when Emperor Chongzhen finally confirmed the death, because he still resented Lu for not understanding political etiquette back then, he refused to grant any honor for a long time and even considered punishing him for the defeat. So history has one short, sharp, accurate line. When Lu Xiangsheng died and Gao Qi-qian lived, the Ming dynasty was finished. Why spend so much time on this historical event? Because when we look back at 2026 today, at the Zhang Youxia, at the fallen rocket force people, they may not be comparable to Lu Xiangsheng personally, but look at the state of the CCP right now. Look at Xi's state. Then look at the newly promoted generals. Political work background after political work background. Basically all eunuch Gao Qi-qian types. In a system like this, when a commander sits down to make a battle plan, his first instinct isn't how do we win? It's how do I avoid committing a political mistake? What's going through these generals' heads? If I take the initiative to attack, will I be suspected of acting on my own? If I coordinate with the friendly forces, will I be suspected of forming a clique? Who can I trust to watch my back? And whoever is behind me, might they be writing blackmail on me right now? The death of Lu Xiangsheng was ultimately death by internal friction, by paranoia. Today's PLA faces the same atomized dilemma. The non-stop high-level purges may have flattened the factions, but they've also shattered the most basic trust between any combat units. If the PLA is in this situation now and the friendly forces are surrounded, the instinctive reaction won't be to rescue them, it will be to do what Gao Qi-qian did. Choose politically safe observation. In Markov-Chain logic, doing nothing is the safest option. The more you do, the more mistakes you make, and the probability of being purged approaches 1. So let's do the final accounting for the PLA. If the military is led by Lu Xiangsheng or Zhang Youxia types, people who understand their job and can actually fight, then yes, they might win battles, but there is always the latent risk of too imperial power of troops following the general. If the military is led by political generals like a eunuch Gao Qi-qian, people who understand nothing about operations but are politically correct, loyal, and have no bottom line, then in the emperor's eyes they offer maximum certainty. But on the battlefield, they will almost certainly lose. Or to put it plainly, they will definitely lose. If the CCP really decides to go for Taiwan, I can start packing to go home next year. To wrap up, Zhang Youxia being taken signals a Chongzhen-style death loop. The regime is trapped in a paradox that no amounts of data can solve. The paradox is this: to stay safe, you must purge capable people. But once you purge the capable people, the country becomes even less safe. The less safe the country becomes, the more paranoid the dictator gets, and the purges become even crazier. Chongzhen killed Lu Xiangsheng and thought imperial power was finally secure. No one could control troops. No one could threaten him. What happened just 5 years later? Rebel peasant armies marched straight into Beijing. Chongzhen drew his sword and looked around. Except for one servant, Wang Chang'en, there was no one left. All those eunuchs and opportunistic politicians who used to shout, "Long live and we pledge absolute support," scattered like rats. They ran to open the city gates and welcome the rebels. And finally, Emperor Chongzhen hanged himself. Xi is doing the exact same thing right now. He's purging the last buffer layer, leaving himself completely exposed in the eye of a political storm with zero cover. In the end state of the Markov chain, every path flows irreversibly towards that black terminal node. In this system, anyone who tries to be a Lu Xiangsheng will end up dead, either under the enemy's blade or under his own side's blade. When everyone understands this, or when everyone safely chooses to be a eunuch Gao Qiqian, then the moment war breaks out, the whole thing snaps like dry wood. Thank you so much for watching. If you find this video helpful, please like it, drop a comment below, and hit the subscribe button right here. It really helps YouTube suggest my video to others. I'll be back with more content soon. Until then, be well.